All right, we're going to talk about chapters 1 through 5 of Farewell to Manzanar, and I'm going to look at aspects of the book and things that Jeanne Wakatsuki talks about in the book, as well as kind of look at some of the questions that were on the discussion questions. And so we start with chapter 1, which is titled, What is Pearl Harbor? And already we begin this kind of notion that Japanese Americans at the time didn't even know what was going on and why they were being attacked because of what was going on with World War II. I mean, they knew it was because they were Japanese, but it didn't make sense to a lot of them because they were American. They were born in America. And so we start with an introduction of the author who is just 7 at the time. And that really lends to her narrative voice and kind of lends to what I think is a sense of innocence as she experiences these different things that come her way. As she experiences life in the internment camps, as she experiences this type of persecution and discrimination. She's just a 7-year-old. She doesn't know any better. She thinks the world should be ideal, should be you know, perfect, should be wholesome, but she's experiencing kind of a loss of innocence. And it takes place in California, in Long Beach, where her father was a fisherman. And notice how she starts the book off. It's this, the water was clean, the sky a sharp Sunday blue. Um, there was no smog around Long Beach. This is very beautiful, idyllic scene that starts the story. And what then we have is um, this family that's just trying to just get by, live in California. Father's trying to be a fisherman, trying to live the American dream when their dreams are shattered, when they go on this fishing trip, but realize that um, Pearl Harbor was attacked. And then we move on and sort around question number 3. We see on page 6 in my book, um, as they hear about the news of Pearl Harbor, they start to realize the ramifications, or at least Papa does. He starts to burn the flag that was brought to him from Hiroshima. He was burning documents and any kind of connections that he had with Japan, trying to show that he was not a spy. And, it's just crazy that he would have to go through these kind of lengths in order to prove his innocence when he was, had nothing, he wasn't a spy at all. But you can understand, and I talked about this with the in-person learners, that there was just a sense of fear of America at this time, just because they had been attacked on American soil and weren't sure what their prospects of the war were going to be. And especially for fishermen at the time, they were seen as potential spies because they were out on the sea and because they had radios and potentially had contact to Japanese people. And Wakatsuki tries to even show that sense of panic in page 7. There was that general panic, and they saw even ordinary household items as something sinister, like flashlights, kitchen knives, cameras, lanterns, toy swords. Those were all potentially dangerous things that the FBI deemed. And then the FBI eventually came and took away Papa. And it was kind of expected to pop up, and he kind of goes about it stoically, knowing that it's just part of the way it is, and that kind of goes into chapter 2. But before we get there, we'll see that she ends chapter 1 with this very ominous foreshadowing that she wouldn't see Papa for about another year. And just imagine that families were torn apart for years at a time was just kind of heartbreaking, right? And so go to chapter 2, and it's called Shikata Ganai. And I believe this is regarding one of your questions as well. As they move around, it's just crazy because the irony is that Papa tried to do everything in his power before Pearl Harbor, obviously, to try to assimilate his family and make sure that they were seen as Americans. He went to a school district, a place that was predominantly Caucasian, in order to try to fit in and show that they were loyal to Americans. But it kind of backfired, and everything that they tried to do was undone with, the attack on Pearl Harbor. And then they moved to Terminal Island before Papa's arrest in order to, try to be with more Japanese Americans and kind of assuage some of the fears that Americans might be feeling at the time. But we see that Jeannie had a pretty hard time fitting in because they were mean to her for not having been able to speak Japanese. And so you can just imagine just all the difficulty and all the pain and hardship that Jeannie had to deal with at this time, feeling like she was unwanted by her native people, native Japanese, and unwanted by, Americans, and just the pain that it felt as they start moving into Manzanar. And so as they get ready to move out and go to Manzanar, to this internment camp, they had to adopt this mindset of shikata ganai. And this is from page, where is it? Where they, the mindset that was given to them, page 14, after Executive Order 9066, which we learned about, we see that a lot of the older people, especially the Issei, had to say shikata ganai. It's almost like it cannot be helped, c'est la vie, like it is what it is, you just got to go along with it. And they had to adopt this mindset because they felt like they couldn't fight back. And so, for you, I want you to answer this question of, do you think it hurt them or helped them during their time in the internment camps? Because the other option would be to try to fight back and to try to make sure that they they are being treated justly. And so I don't know. I pose this question to the in-person learners as well of, well, what would you do? What would you have done if you were in that situation? And there's varying responses there as well. But so anyway, they go to Manzanar and they realize that it's not really set up very well. The Owen Valley is pretty harsh. It's hot, it's sandy, it's dusty, it's cold at night. And it's pretty difficult. And then with chapter 3, we see the title called A Different Kind of Sand, and we just see how they're trying to adjust to life in Manzanar, and Woody trying to be the man. He's trying to be the dominant one, the one who takes care of the family now that he's the man of the family. And listen to how Jeannie describes her brother. It was hard to get Woody down. He kept smiling when everyone else was ready to explode. Grief flickered in his eyes. He blinked it away and hugged her tighter, meaning his mom. And so he has this kind of character that's resilient and able to keep the family together. And so I hope you saw that his perseverance is what's kind of keeping the family afloat. And then chapter 4, a common master plan. Sadly, as life continues to get, as they continue to live life in Manzanar, we just see the chaos. And that's what she says in page 27. It was pure chaos. Everything was hurriedly planned, and they were sick constantly. And on page 27, it says that she had stomach cramps and diarrhea, first from the shots, and then they got the food and the food that would make them sick, because it would spoil quickly, and they would have what's called the Manzanar runs, and be in the bathroom a lot, and these latrines were just horrible. I mean, you can see the description of how they barely were even working, how there was no privacy, and just how disgusting life was. And so this theme of shikata ganai comes up once again towards the end of chapter 4, and it was just something that they had to endure, and they had to be resilient in the face of this kind of adversity and deal with it, and I think that's an important mindset that they had. And then chapter 5, I think the title is very apropos. It's called Almost a Family. And, this has allusions to Papa's arrest and the fact that he's not around. but also the family dynamics has been split at this time. They're not eating meals together, and we saw that in chapter 5, she mentions how life before Manzanar was, and how families were constantly eating together, and how they were living life together. There's these big, joyful um, meal times, especially at dinner. And then in Manzanar, they stop eating together. They're no longer eating as a family. They're going out as cliques, friends, family members, onesie twosies. They're going and eating alone or with small groups, and it really fractures the family unit that was so strong. And we also see that people then begin to try to do their part as part of the war and help out with what they can in Manzanar, and do jobs like carpenter or roofing foreman, or mama working as a dietitian. And finally, towards the end, and just one last comment, like on page 36, she uses the word adrift, and we really see the family unit falling apart, and it's just so unfortunate. And she has a very interesting affinity towards the Catholic teachings of the martyrs, of the people who suffered for their faith. And I think that's really interesting, because you can imagine her as a 7-year-old child. She's going through all these sufferings that she doesn't understand why, just because of the color of her skin and the fact that she was Japanese. But the fact that she grew up in America and was born in America really confuses her as to why she's being persecuted. And so she probably resonates with these martyrs, these women especially, who were persecuted for their faith and who were killed or tortured for their faith, because she probably sees a lot of her story in there. And finally, she talks about Papa coming home and their first initial reaction when they see him, and how different he's become. I mean, he was gone 9 months, but he had aged 10 years. He looked over 60. This is page 41. Gaunt, wilted as his shirt, underweight, leaning on that cane and favoring his right leg. He just looks like a broken old man. And as he's returned, we'll see how his character changed in the prison, and how that affected his family. So we'll continue that in chapter 6.